guys, and welcome back to my channel. So I have another sewing related video for you guys, but this is going to be specifically what are the notebooks I use as part of planning my projects and documenting what I've actually made. So I have two notebooks, as you guys can see here. The first one is actually one that Minimal Plan sent me. It's a little B6 notebook, and it's just a little single stitched doohickey with, I think it's like 60 pages. Yeah, so 61 pages, and it is essentially just a blank dot grid notebook. And the other one I have is another B6 notebook, but this is one that I actually made, and I made this while I was in Paris visiting some friends. And so I was in Paris visiting Riccardo, Claire, and Melina, and Claire knows how to make notebooks, so she did a little workshop on how to do notebooks where you basically have a stitched binding, but you do multiple little packets of paper. So this was a notebook that I told her what I wanted and she designed it. So it's essentially blank on the left and dot grid on the right, and it is in fact page numbered. So this notebook has 128 pages. So these are two notebooks that I've been using for my sewing projects. We're going to take a look. This is the one that I set up first. So we're going to take a look in here, and I'm going to explain sort of why I have a second notebook. So this one is my sewing projects notebook. And in one of my previous videos on sewing, I think I showed you guys a different notebook, and I ended up not using that other notebook because the binding was such that it was really hard to kind of open and close and keep everything neat. So I had this as an extra notebook lying around, and so I pulled it out, and I have to say I am in love with the B6 size. So yeah, I'm kind of obsessed. Anyway, so I started sewing in April of 2019, so I just have that as my start date. And essentially what I've got in here is a little bit of information. So when you are doing sizing for patterns and stuff, you need to know your measurements. So rather than remeasure every single time I need to make something, I have some general measurements, and I did actually date them so that if things change, I can update as needed. So I actually have a second set down here of measurements, and I just did the date on top there, and I did a really simplified version. So these are just measurements for me, so I know when I'm going through patterns. And then this is essentially projects that I have made. So for each item, I have what it is. I try to include if there's a pattern to go with it, and if not, some of them it was going to be too long, so I wrote the pattern name down like kind of at the bottom or whatever. But basically I include the pattern and what it is. I do a quick little sketch, very quick. I have when I made it, what size I made, the material I made, and any notes. So for example, this was the first thing that I ever made, and what the notes that I had was that it shortened 1 to 2 inches in the wash, and I tried to include in the material if it was pre-washed or not, just so I kind of know. So here you can see I have the second thing. Now this one, rather than the size, actually just did the style. So it is actually included the size too, but I have the style. So for non-clothing things, I will have sometimes different information down here. So for this, the style was the backpack / tote, and it was the large size, because there is like the regular and the mini, so this is the bigger one. Then I didn't have any particular notes for this project, so I just didn't have that there. So you guys can see here that, this one I include in the size. I will include if I made any alterations. So this was a graded size 10 at the top, size 12 at the bottom, and I added a full bust adjustment. The notes here was to fix the pattern to include the full bust adjustment because I just did it on the fabric. So whatever came up while I was sewing, I try to include in here. So if I ever want to remake something, I have enough information to know what sort of went wrong or what would I have liked to fix so that I don't make the same mistakes again. This was one, for example, this was a self-drafted belt, but it was based on a serpentine wrap belt that I saw online from Elizabeth Susan, and that was just to know, I know I didn't make the belt up. I was inspired by something that already existed, but I just kind of looked at a picture of it and was like, all right, I think this is what we're gonna do. So it counts kind of as a self-drafted. So again, made material and notes, because obviously there wasn't really a size, but I did include that I used roughly 2 inches by 90 inches of the raw material to have a final size of about 3/4 of an inch by 90 inches long. So, and I just did sort of instructions on how I made it since it was self-drafted. These were another one. So here I had a lot more notes on here. This was the peppermint jumpsuit. This was one that I actually was planning to do a different one, and I had a test version that I was going to make, but I ended up just keeping the test version and not making the other version. So, and again, I put the size based on whatever the sizing is on the pattern. So here was, this was a self-drafted, I just did that in parentheses over there. There was an unlined zip pouch. This was actually a dress that I bought at H&M, and I didn't like it had tie tops, so I actually just have on my drawing here, I have that it was the tie straps that I turned into normal straps, and I just kind of explained what I did, so if I want to do it again, I kind of know what to do. So this one wasn't this wasn't something I specifically sewn, but it was something that I made sort of a large-ish alteration to. You know, I didn't just fix a hem that had come undone, I actually changed entirely how the straps function. So I just threw that in there. Then I have these self-drafted vegetable drawstring vegetable bags, and just kind of, so here, for example, they were self-drafted, but it was based on a fabric store tutorial for, like, they have a tutorial for drawstring bags, but I completely did my own sizes, and I really just followed their tutorial for the drawstring section. So I did it down here, but they are like more or less self-drafted. Then I've got couple other things over here. This was based on literally the fabric store. They had a drawstring bag tutorial, so I like sort of did the sizes that they mentioned, but I just used whatever fabric I had. So yeah, that's another one. Oops. So this was another self-drafted one. I didn't even put in the measurements on here because I literally just kind of eyeballed it. But otherwise, I tried to include enough information so that if I were to make it again, I kind of know what I did. So, yep. Sometimes I'm really specific about the materials. Sometimes it's just kind of like, this was a cotton plaid for this top that I got that was like end of bolt, and it was just kind of a mystery cotton. Like I'm pretty sure it was cotton and it was plaid, and that's about all I know about it. So this is just where I keep any of the projects that I have made. This was like a little quick hand woven tawashi, and it's not even technically sewn, but I just threw it in here so that if I want to make it again, I have some information about it. So those are all the projects that I've actually like made to completion, and they tend to only go in here once I've started like physically sewing them. And that is one of the reasons why I have this other notebook. So one of the things that I kind of came across with this is I really like having this notebook as things that I have sewn. Also, it's only 60 pages, so like it'll last me a good long while if I'm doing sewing projects, but if I'm doing pre-planning and project planning and that kind of stuff in here, then I'm gonna go through this notebook super fast. So that was when I was making this notebook, I decided, even like before I started making it, this is why I got the layout the way it is, that I wanted to use this as my project planning book for sewing. Because what I had been doing, and I don't even have any of these pages anymore because I've since transferred everything in here, is I had a running list. So you guys know I use Google Calendar to time block. I have the tasks like app open on the side column, and I just keep a running list of tasks that are like not necessarily urgent, but just things I want to remember. Sometimes I put a deadline for them and what have you. So I had this whole running list of like projects I want to make. So if I have fabric and I already own fabric, I can write down what I want to do the project for, or if it's something that I don't have fabric for, I can write down what I want, like what fabric I want to get, what patterns I want to make. I had scratch pieces of paper with planning and like sizing and all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, you know what, it would be really nice to have all of that in one place, and that way, especially if it's something that I'm gonna have to futz with, I have a place where I can take the notes and like as I'm planning through it, and then once I have the finished piece, I'll go ahead and transfer all the information that's necessary into here. So what I ended up doing is, so this is one, I don't have any intro pages, so this one got glued down to help with the binding. So I'm just skipping that. So I just have my sewing project planning over on this side, and I did create an index. So this is one that I actually just, because this was a blank page, I did use a ruler and I just did out my index, but I did it in 2 columns because I don't really need a ton of space over here. So I just have done a quick little index with what it is, colon, and then the page number or page numbers. Then on this side over here, I have my fabric wish list. So I have, this was a running list. I actually had it on the tasks app in Google Calendar as well. So different fabrics that I want to look into that I'm thinking about doing an online order at some point because I'm not finding this fabric here in my local stores. So I have what it is, and then if I end up doing it or wherever I end up getting it, I'll write down where, so I know, was it an online order? Which store was it? Did I buy it in town? Like, where did I actually find it? And what my price was. So I should also probably like do price per meter, price per yard, something like that in there, but just kind of a quick little wish list over here so that I can keep track of that. Then I go directly into projects. So the way I did it was I grouped by type of item. So these were all tops. Now these I've started sketching out just so I kind of have in mind what the final product is going to look like. And actually on these are both the back view of these two tops. And then I've also just got a longer list, so I haven't even done all the sketches in here, a longer list of things that I want to do. If I've started making a project planning page for a specific thing that I've already got on here, then I actually will do the page numbers in parentheses. And each project is going to have at minimum a full spread because I want to have room to sketch and room to make notes. So you'll see here, for example, the Morning Glory top is I already have a project page on pages 20 to 21. So going through here, I have bottoms. So I've got a huge long list of things I want to make, and I've started sketching out a couple. I've got dresses / one piece, so like rompers or jumpsuits, that kind of stuff. And so I have things like this one, for example. I know which dress I want to make. It's the Amelie dress by Untitled Thoughts. I want to do the bra safe version where it kind of goes a little more in the center of your back. And I think I want to make it out of raw silk. So if I already have some ideas, but like not enough information to do a project page, but enough that I'm like, oh, I want to write this down and not forget, then I'll add it to the line over here. And again, I'll go back through and start sketching out those at some point. Just honestly, I wanted to get it on paper so I didn't lose scratch paper and like various things. It was have it all in one place. Then I've got lounge, so clothes that I want to wear around the house for like lounge clothes versus clothes that I wear like physically to bed, so PJs. I also have outerwear, and this is one, for example, I know I want to make the opium coat, so I already know which pattern. This is deer and doe. Doe and deer, deer and doe. I always get the order mixed up. And then I also would like to make a blazer and a cardigan, but I don't have any ideas on patterns. So I do try and include, if I have a specific pattern I want to make, I do that. If I don't have a specific pattern yet, then I just kind of write information. I think actually on pants, that's a pretty good one. So here, for example, I just wrote high-waisted mom jeans, so fitted at the waist with 1 to 2 inches ease in the hips and thighs. So that's one, I don't have an actual pattern, but like I want to make something that's like this. So then I've got other / home. So I have started to do these. I haven't done my little check boxes over here. So handkerchiefs, hair towel, curtains, shower robe, cleaning rags. So like this is just like miscellaneous that doesn't go anywhere else kind of thing. And then it jumps straight into project pages. So this is the project page spread that I made for the Morning Glory top. Now this is the source, it's Sarah Kirsten made the pattern, and it's basically just like a tutorial. It's not a pattern that you print out, it's just a tutorial, and it's pretty straightforward. So I ended up sort of condensing the instructions. So I have, this is what the final top is going to look like, and then I've got step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So I can kind of look at here. Now obviously I have saved the tutorial somewhere in my computer so that I can find it, but I wanted to have sort of the general workflow over here so that I can have that open, but like if I get comfortable, I can just use this to go through and do it. And then I also have pre-measured for like what size fabric I'm going to need. So I already have my measurements there. So I know exactly what size I'm going to make it, and I also know how much fabric it takes. So it takes 1 to 2 yards. So 2 yards is approximately 1.8 meters. And I also have a little note that seams are 1/4 inch. So that is just kind of what a project page would look like. And I don't have a ton of project pages set up, but I do have this one. This is one that I've made the Ogden cami as like a PJ top. And I have another top that I bought that I realized was very similar to the Ogden cami if I were to hack it in and add buttons. So I actually, this is the one based on the top that I have that I'd like to hack the Ogden cami to like make my own version. And then I was thinking that I have these other versions that would be fun to make. So I just made like a hack ideas page, and I have some room to add more if I want to, but this was just like a general brainstorming kind of deal. And then the other one I have is I want to do this knit trapeze tank dress. So I had already like measured out and decided what size I wanted to make, and that I wanted to add 5 inches to the length and how much fabric I need and all that. I haven't actually gotten the fabric or printed out the pattern or any of that kind of stuff, but I have already decided I would like to make this at some point, so I just went ahead and set up a project page. And then the other one is this is a project I'm currently working on where I want to make Persephone shorts. So it's an Anna Allen pattern, and I forgot to write that down. I literally haven't even finished this spread yet. So I'm doing a test version in cotton where I cut out everything and I'm basically just basting it because I wasn't wasn't sure how it was gonna work. I'm doing a graded size 8 at the waist to size 14 at the hip, and I was not at all sure that it was going to like work the way I wanted it to, so I wanted to do a full test version, but I'm actually gonna go back through and try to see if I can do it without ripping everything out. It's just basted, so if I have to, it's no big deal, but I want to actually try and do the full, like do the fly, because I've never sewn a fly before, so I just made a note, sew in the fly to fully test it and also to sew in the waistband, and I'm thinking that I might just like fully finish these shorts and wear them around home, because it's kind of a thin cotton, but it's still like good material, so I would have a pair of shorts that I can wear around the house kind of thing. So that is, you know, I've written down here, test 1, so if I for some reason have to make multiple test versions, I can do that, or I can make notes on like the final version that I'm gonna make and all that kind of stuff, and I'm trying to write down any alterations I made. So for example, the graded, and also that the center back seam, so all of the seam lines are at 1/2 inch, but with the center back seam, when I tried them on, I had a little bit of a gape, so I went ahead and I just did sort of like an angled, so at the top it's 3/4 of an inch, and it sort of angles back down to 1/2 inch, and that seemed to be good. So I wanna make sure I remember to do that if in the final version of the shorts, they fit really well. I wanna make sure I add that in. So that is kind of how I'm doing my project pages, and as you can see, I have a ton of space left. I have a ton of projects I wanna work on, so I'm gonna have plenty of space to plan out a bunch of different projects, but I just wanted to make sure I had everything here, because with the sewing patterns, there's certain things that I know that I'm going to want to make multiple versions of, and so it makes no sense to do all of my planning on scratch paper and then like lose it. So at least here it lives all in one space, and then I have all of my final projects with some notes and stuff there. So between the two, I basically am hoping that I will never forget or lose any information as regards to any work I've done on a sewing project, because especially with things that I'm having to alter to fit me, I don't want to have to do that work all over again, because obviously it was, you know, time and effort to do it now. If I take notes on it, then I just kind of base my next project off of my notes, and I think it'll save me time in the future. So that is how I'm using these two notebooks to help me plan out sewing projects and to track the things that I've actually made. If you guys have any comments or questions or any advice for information I should be adding to my spreads, let me know down in the comment section, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye. Hey guys, so if you've made it all the way to the end of this video and are actually watching my end screen and you're not subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate it if you would. There's a little button right there for you to do it. And if you're interested in watching some more of my videos, I have links to 2 of my older videos off to the left there, so you can check those out if you would like to, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!